What's up, buddy? So this rack that you've been watching me put together is from a company called EcoWorthy. I bought mine off of Amazon. I actually just had them on sale for a really good price for Cyber Monday. Very easy to put together. You could put up to 4 panels on it depending on the size. Most 200 watt or smaller panels. And as you can see, I'm putting it on a mobile rack. But I'm going to show you how we can actually anchor this rack down right here to where it can't blow over in some of these severe thunderstorms that we get or high winds. But I'm going to make this to where I can actually make it portable, carry it around the property on tractor forks. We'll explain all that in just a minute. But ultimately for, well, emergency situations, if I need to use it in other places. All right, so let's have a quick discussion about wiring panels, and I've got a more in-depth video on the channel to describe this, but I'm gonna show you how I'm wiring mine. So I am running the new EcoWorthy 195 watt panels. By the way, these are bifacial, which means if you look on the back side, you still see the panel. They can collect light from both sides. They're supposed to give you a pretty significant gain on input and output doing that. Oh, and full disclosure, EcoWorthy sent me these panels out to do some testing with. I've never tried bifacial panels before. I've been very curious about them. So let's see what kind of output we get out of these tomorrow when the sun's back out. So here's the specs we need to pay attention to. Let's look at all of our voltages here and our amperages. So our open circuit voltage is 23.7 volts, and it looks like we're going to be running around, well, we'll just say 9 to 10 amps. Let's just say 10 amps to keep everything nice and consistent, and 24 volts. So there's multiple ways that you can wire panels. If you take a look on the back side at the wiring, you'll see each panel has a positive and a negative. So what we can do to increase that voltage is what's called series. So I'll actually take the negative off of this panel and hook it into the positive on this panel. What happens whenever you do that? Do series. Because, well, we're close to 24 volts, let's just call it 24 for ease of math. Whenever you hook a positive to a negative on 2 different panels, by the way, you're left with a positive and negative that you would then connect to your inverter. Series raises your voltage, but your amperage of 10 amps stays exactly the same. But keep that in mind. Series, when you hook positive and negatives together, ups your voltage. Now there's something else called parallel. So if I were to go get a pair of Y adapters, which I own some, and hook a positive to this positive, a negative from this panel to this negative, and then that Y adapter goes down to 2 singles that we then would connect and run to our inverter. That's called parallel. That keeps your voltage the same, so we'd stay at 24 volts, but that raises your amperage. So we'd go from 10 amps that each panel is to 20 amps. Now, why is this important? The higher the amperage you go, the thicker the wire that you need. Ultimately, you want to raise your voltage. There's another very important reason to raise voltage, and that important reason is on your inverters. Not all inverters, especially larger ones like this 6500 watt inverter, will kick on. What that means is they have a minimum voltage, and looking in the manual on this one, we need a minimum of 80 volts in order for the solar charge controller to activate and then start processing. So we're very close to that with only 4 panels at 24 volts, which is, we can go from 24 to 48 all the way up to 96 volts if we series all in order. So ultimately that means I need to series everything, raising the voltage every time, but keeping the amperage the same. And I want to keep the amperage low anyways, so I don't have to run a large size wire. But with us running 10 gauge out there, I'm okay on the 10 amps that we're going to get here. So I'm going to take the positive off of this panel, hook it to the negative on this one. I have to clip these little wire ties in order to do that. Take the positive off this one, negative that one, positive off that one, negative to that one. Ultimately, I'm going to be left with one positive all the way on the other end and a negative all the way on the other end down here. So my wire that's going to be coming out of the ground out there, well, we'll just run one connection over to here, the negative, run the positive over to there, and then we're hooked up back underground going to my inverter. All right, so I got the trench dug behind me to do what's called a burial rated solar PV wire. And this stuff was actually kind of hard to find, but they do make a special wire that's got a coating on the outside that is made for direct burial, for sun exposure, UV, all that good stuff. So I got a few hundred feet of the same color. We'll make sure that we mark one nice and black to know that it's our ground. This makes a lot more sense for me, this just being a basic off-grid ag structure out here, to invest in this wire instead of going and getting conduit and all the other stuff to put this in. All right, well, I just realized my battery died, but I drove a piece of rebar in and pulled my wire around it, drug it all the way down the ditch and dropped it, and then grabbed the other wire there, since I'm doubling over and using the same color wire in here. But I wanted to show that the rebar is a good little trick for wrapping, pulling, and dropping a wire straight in there, and you can pull off of a reel or however far away that you want a piece of wire to come from. All right, so I kinked the wire. One side is taped black for my ground, this will be my positive, and the other end is also labeled like that. So now we're just going to throw some dirt in and cover up this trench, and we can start making our connections on each end for the solar panels that are about to come out. All right, so I'm doing some quick testing on these panels, and due to environmental conditions and just time of day, everything else, it's going to take me a while to get the full specs on it. But let me show you a quick little test I'm doing before I move this entire setup out to the barn. So I'm just testing 2 panels offhand. See, the sun is low in the sky. It is now wintertime down here in Florida. It's a chilly day, and I'm just running 2 panels right now. Due to the length of wire that I have, I just can't reach all the way down here, but that doesn't matter. This gives us figures. So 2 195 watt panels in series, which brings us up to about 48 volts and 10 amps. There is clouds and haze in the sky. I'm not getting perfect sun, but it's not bad. Let's take a quick peek of what we're getting. Just running it to one of my portable power stations right here. And you can see we're averaging about 340 to 350 watts right now. Now I can make some rough adjustments out here and probably get that closer to the 400. Also, I would like to test this when we don't have all this haze rolling in, but this gives us a good starting figure. 350 out of just under 400 watts capability is a really good start. But I need to steal this panel. Let's go get it set up over there. It's going to take me a couple hours to wire everything in. By then we've lost the sun, and you can see where I'm going with this. It's going to take me multiple days of checking at the proper time of day, different temperatures, different cloud conditions to see the full output of these. Well, we're going to keep you updated because this is going to be a pretty big series over here anyways. But thus far, we're getting close, not quite rated output, but the conditions are also not perfect either. All right, so we've got this nice little portable rack back here that's basically, well, just designed to pick up with tractor forks. And one thing I wanted to point out, in case y'all don't have a tractor and you want something portable like this, you can put a shaft or a bar right through the 6x6s on the other end. Go to Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, get you some cheap wheels, and you can figure out a way to either rig a rope up on front where you can pull it by hand, or put you a tongue on the front and you can carry it with a four-wheeler or a garden tractor. You could build one of these portable racks for very cheap and carry it all different kinds of ways. But being that I have multiple tractors with tractor forks, makes sense just to be able to pick it up and move it. But because we've made this to where it can be moved so easily, that's not good for all the thunderstorms and everything else we get down here in the south. It'll just blow right over. That's where these come in. I have used these before, and let me tell you something, this may look like a joke. If you've ever put in earth augers, I use them from this size all the way up to 4-footers. Good luck on pulling even a single one of these out once you get it in hard packed ground like this. These work so well, they're relatively affordable, and you can put them in quick and easy. Best of all, you can take them right back out, or the way I'm about to show you how I'm going to attach this to where it can't blow over in the wind, I can take 2 bolts out and I can come pick this up anytime I need for emergency use. So these earth augers, you can get them smaller than this, bigger than this. I like these sizes, I've used them before, but the top is designed to unscrew. It comes with a socket that goes down over it, and you screw these right into the ground with a drill or an impact. And you're going to need a decent amount of power to do this. Once you get these in the ground, the top is threaded. You put in your little eyelet right here, and you can through bolt it or hook or ratchet strap anything you need. By the way, if y'all use tents or, you know, those big party tents, things like that, that can really catch a lot of wind, these are excellent. Put them in with a drill. You can put a ratchet strap to this and you can hold down some serious stuff in the wind. I actually have Ruger's kennel held down with 2 of these. It went through the last hurricane just fine, no problems. These hold a lot. So next, we need to get some MC4 connectors crimped onto the end of this wire. after we make the cut. Remember, we looped the wire over, crimped it, marked one side for ground, the other side for positive. So we're gonna make a cut here, put our waterproof MC4 connectors on here that'll connect to each end of the panels that we have, again, don't forget series, positive to negative, and then you're left with a positive, negative on the end. So I bought a kit off of Amazon that comes with a bunch of these connectors, as well as the metal inserts that we have to crimp on that snap inside of these. And then we have these screw-on caps on the end that go on your wire, and they have a rubber seal in there, which makes these waterproof. This is all very important that we put it together properly. Now it's real easy to crimp the wrong end on. You want to pay attention. This is a positive that we have left over right here coming out of the panel. So that means we're going to want to use this one right here, which most people associate as a negative, but this is going to go on our positive wire because we're trying to connect to the positive right here. We'll come down to the other end. Here is a negative off of the panel. So we'll take this one that has a little red rubber band on it. You can see it right there. And we'll put this on the negative wire that's labeled right down there. The kit's also going to come with these metal connectors. You see we have two different styles here. They're designed to go inside of each other. We'll just refer to this one as the male and this is the female. So if we take a look back down at those connectors again that we have right here, we'll find which one will go in there. I know it's this one right here. I know this particular style goes on this one right here because I can physically see all that. So these are the two that we're going to put together. All right, so we'll start by taking this cap off. You don't necessarily have to do it this way. It's just how my routine is. All right, now we'll take this particular end right here. Make sure the wire goes all the way up in it. It does. Some people solder these, but I have a special set of ratcheting crimpers right here. We'll use this bottom size right here for this larger size crimp that does a really good job of crimping this on. So long story short, we'll put that into the crimper. It ratchets down nice and tight. And you can see this bottom section right here is what we just crimped. You do not want to crimp the top because it has all those little flares on it. And that's what will actually snap into our plastic connector. So you'll push. I just heard it snap. Now it won't pull back off. Now the important part, let's put this piece back up. Twist it down really tight. This kit even comes with a little wrench to get this extra tight because this is compressing that rubber washer that was in there I just showed you, the blue one, and causing a waterproof seal around that wire. Now just repeat the same thing on the other side and we can connect our panels. So it's worth noting that I am not connected out at the panels because, well, I don't want to be cutting through these wires that are having voltage on them. So the last connection that we make is back out at the panels. I'm also going to leave these wires really long and curl them up and put them in the wall in case we want to redesign or move any of this down the road. It's better to have a few extra feet here instead of cutting and splicing back in later. So I've tried to set these panels up where they're going to catch the majority of the morning sun. Right there's about noon, and you can see we're already heading to 1 to 2 in the afternoon here, so I'm not going to get perfect sun, but they should catch and produce all the way till late in the afternoon. I'm not needing a tremendous amount of power here. By the way, I am really tempted to set up another setup just like this. Build one identical, move this one over. This wire is more than sufficient to carry the voltage of another set the same exact size. Then I'd have 1600 watts of panels out here. But what I like about that setup is I have dual inverters in the house that currently don't have panels. They're just there as a big battery backup to run us, you know, 36 plus hours should we lose power in a raging storm. I don't have to go outside. It's just an indoor generator basically. But I would love to be able to come out here and pick up 2 different sets of panels, carry them to the back side of the house, put me some weatherproof MC4 connectors out there, and bam, if we're rocking through, say, multi-day outage after a hurricane, I have 2 portable sets of panels to go over there and start recharging those battery systems. I really like the sound of that. All right, let's get this plugged in. I want to remind everybody, this is an off-grid ag structure. If I was pulling permits and doing this for a home install, getting the full inspections and all, yeah, some of this stuff would be in full conduit and just be a completely different setup. So keep that in mind. All right, so now we should better go up here and see if we've got power coming in. We're showing 90 volts. That's good. That's above the minimum this inverter requires. And we're pulling 270 watts. Now you're probably saying, wait a minute, why are you only pulling 270? Keep this in mind. This battery is almost 100% charged, so this inverter is smart enough to ramp down. One thing I really wanted to mention about bifacial panels, this is worth bringing up. What that means is the backside can actually reflect back and catch some solar energy, some reflection. But the material that you're on top of makes a big difference. Obviously, being on shadowed ground and grass, well, this is going to absorb light. It's not going to reflect much back. If these were mounted on, say, concrete, or a viewer had an awesome idea that I should put some white rock in this area, I think we're going to test that in an upcoming episode. Any sort of reflective surface that you put bifacial panels on, the tilt that they're at, their angle, all that's very important. That's how you get reflection back and potentially increase your output from your panels. So keep that in mind as you buy bifacial panels. If you're just going to mount them straight to a roof, for example, it's probably not going to do you any good because you're not going to get any light to the backside. If you're going to put it over grass like this, you're not going to get much reflection. So keep the surface in mind that you mount bifacial panels on. I think this is going to be a fun test coming up as we kind of play with this area, and once I figure out how many panels and all that I'm going to do right here, I think we can actually reflect back with materials that we already have and get a nice little gain in our solar output. We just have to get past all these rainy days to test some of this stuff. So the other thing that I really like about an inverter like this that I didn't really cover in the last episode, you can set these inverters up to run off of grid power first, solar input first, which is how I have this one, or battery first, or a combination of all. But how I have this set right now is, once this battery tops off here in a second, any power source that's on, say this light that's pulling a few watts, this battery is going to stop charging, and this inverter is going to then take incoming power from the panels out there, just a few watts to run the light. There's no point in taking power in from the panels, converting it, running it through a converter, a charger, charging the battery, taking power back out of the battery, converting it to AC to run a light. That's just foolish and a complete waste of energy. You have a lot of efficiency losses right there. So this particular inverter, you go through the manual and you can set it up on multiple different modes, but the smartest way in my mind to set one up is to use incoming power from the panels first to go straight up here and run your output sources, so to speak. No point in charging your battery, pulling back out of your battery to run your system. That's just an inefficient way to run. And had I not went with a smarter inverter like this, I was originally thinking about just doing a basic, cheap solar charge controller and one of those basic looking inverters that looks like the ones you kind of stick in a vehicle. Well, those are very inefficient. They just take power in, send it to the battery, pull it back out, the inverter runs, and you get no AC input, no smart options like you do an inverter like this. That's really worth pointing out to a lot of people that's considering a system like this. All right, so now we're gonna do something I've really been looking forward to, getting some real lights out here. So if I wanna come out and work at night times, especially this time of year, when it's getting dark at 5:30, 5:45, and I may wanna come out and do another hour or two worth of work. So we're gonna put up some really nice high bay lights right here. The same ones I've had in my shop for years. So I have wired me in an outlet up here. That's what we just wired up with a breaker inside. And I'm just gonna do a relatively simplistic way of running these lights. So weatherproof box, I can plug an extension cord in right here. I got some that's really cheap. They're outdoor rated. We're just gonna run them up to here and hang one light in all 4 bays. And I promise you, these lights right here in this box you're gonna see in a second are gonna be more than bright enough to light this barn up for some work. All right, so before I get all these lights installed and you can't see them from the ground, let me show you these things right here. These are Hyperlights. You can get them off Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. I love these lights. High bay lights, unbelievably bright. Like, think of warehouse lights. You only need just a few in a big barn, and you're gonna see how well they light up. I've been running these in my barn for quite a long time. Love them. I've got buddies that are running them in their barns. Very well made, all heavy duty aluminum. You can even screw in and add motion lights to these, but they have a very wide throw. This one's 120 degrees, so you can mount them in the center of a barn like this, and it throws a wide swath. Wait until you see when I get these installed up here. Now you can hook these over a cable, like I'm doing, a chain. They even come with a safety cable. I'm sure there's all different kinds of ways that you can mount these, but a cable or chain is the way that I like. It's kind of how I have them in my shop. And then you just plug them in. All right, here we are, moment of truth. You can see it's almost dark, really grainy. Doesn't look good. A little bit of light over there, but if you look down at the ground, can't hardly see nothing. Let's go ahead and flip these lights on and see what it looks like. Oh, wow. Check that out. This looks amazing. Absolutely perfect. I was thinking it was going to be too bright, and don't get me wrong, this is bright, but this looks like the perfect amount of light to work under. And because I've put them so high up in the peaks, you kind of don't really look up at them and they're not blinding you. I really like that. The other thing I'm really happy with is I'm not seeing overshadowing. That's the cool thing about these Radar Series lights right here. They've got a wider throw than the ones that I have in my shop, although they're very similar. These just, well, like I said, have a wider throw, so you don't see no shadowing or overlap. I should also mention this company for free, and I've did this both times I've gotten lights from them. They'll actually take the dimensions of your barn right here, and if you'll give them the height is very, very important. They will give you a little layout on the lights they recommend and how many of them. So I did that with this one. I was thinking 3, maybe 4 lights of the other styles what I needed, and they're like, no, you need to go with the wider throw Radar Series, and I'm glad I did. I mean, look out here. No shadowing, no nothing. This is far better than I was expecting. I love these lights. This is awesome. As y'all can see, it is freezing. Because I went with an inverter that also has AC input. Technically, that's for tying to the grid and on days to where solar charging isn't available, or if your loads exceed the battery or the solar input, for example, it can swap over to the grid. Well, we don't have grid out here. That's the whole point of going off grid, but I still want to put AC input capability out here. So we're going to wire in a generator inlet box right here. So, for example, if we have multiple rainy days and the battery just doesn't get charged and I can't have power out here, need power out here, I can just bring one of my generators, plug it right into this. It'll pass through and allow me to power things up and or charge the battery. I think it's a good, quick, cheap addition to add and worth doing, especially since my inverter has that capability. All right, so let's wrap this episode up. Sadly, it was in the 20s yesterday, it was in the 20s again this morning, and they're calling for multiple days of rain for the next several days. So painting is out for quite a while. So what that means is I can't finish up the last things that I want to do to the building, but I want to show you these because it's going to answer a lot of questions that y'all had in the previous video. By the way, if you've noticed all the electrical boxes I've put in, I haven't sealed those in. That's because I need to pull them back off the wall, paint behind them with a brush, and then I'll seal them, mount them back to the wall permanently, and we can straighten up the wiring inside. So speaking of the cold weather, a lot of y'all have brought up concerns about, well, what about the weather being cold and you've got batteries in there? We all know that lithium batteries are not really designed for sub-freezing temperatures. Well, here's the thing. This is Florida. Yeah, we get some occasional 20+ degree days and some cold snaps, but we warm right back up middle of the day. Now, days like today where it'll stay in the 50s, that's great for batteries. That's perfectly fine. Not good for painting, as we just discussed. But what a lot of people fail to realize is lithium batteries can be discharged, actual use, much lower than freezing temperatures. It's the charging, and especially rapid charging, that you have to be careful of when you have freezing temperatures. Plus, there's a battery management system in all this anyways that really monitors the temperature. I should also mention I'm going to keep a small space heater out here. Now, those are very power hungry, but on really freezing nights where I'm needing to run the equipment and can't power it off, I may run a small space heater out here. I also have a diesel heater, but that does require some plumbing of the exhaust that I might permanently put out here as well. That'll more than heat this space up right here. But it's overall just not really a concern being down here in Florida. That's why I didn't go through the expense of spray foam insulation or anything else. And I didn't want to do traditional insulation out here because bugs, mice, and everything else love nesting in that nasty stuff. So since I have ways to mitigate the cold, we're good to go there. But what about the heat? That's what I'm most concerned with. Luckily, where we built this, it's shaded by a bunch of trees, but there is, well, a lot of heat out here in the summer. Now, these batteries can run to extremely high temperatures before the battery's management system cuts off. I don't think we're ever going to reach those temperatures, but ventilation is necessary. Now, I do catch a little bit of sun on the backside. You can probably see it's lighting up around the building right here, and I thought we would do a small solar-powered fan setup out here. All right, so in this box is some chicken coop solar-powered fans that I'd bought a while back. I wound up not putting them out in our chicken coop. Wasn't necessary, but there is a nice size solar panel in here. I can get this to open up, as y'all can see, and it comes with 2 fans. So as soon as this sees any sort of sun, the fans automatically start spinning. I've also bought some screen vents right here. So what we'll do is essentially poke a couple of holes through the side of the building after it's painted. That's why we're not installing these today. And we'll do it on the opposite side of the building. Put screens on one side, the fans on the other, solar panel on the back side, and we'll allow it to just pull some natural ventilation through. Because my plans are to come back and spray foam the top here, the little lights and gaps and other thing that you see. I want to spray foam and close all that out so we don't want wasp and everything else in here, and we'll allow our ventilation to be from the solar powered fans. Lastly, humidity is going to be a problem in here, being that we're in Florida. Ventilation helps with that, but it's always humid here in Florida, and that's not good for electronics. So I am actually already running a small dehumidifier in here. Let me show you that. I've had this dehumidifier for years. Actually, I run it in the back room of my shop. And you'd be surprised how much water that pulls out of the air right there. I actually just ordered a slightly larger one for this building right here, but I'm gonna run this in the meantime. So we can control heat in here, we're gonna control humidity as best we can, and we have some backup plans in case it gets too cold, which is the least of my concern down here. Probably I'll come back and do a final update on the shop out here once we put in our solar fans, we paint it, we'll give you a last look, we'll give you an update on the panels and any other changes that we might make. All right, so more progress. As soon as we get past all these back-to-back cold snaps and several days of rain, we'll finish this up, we'll bring you along. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget, if you're interested in any of this equipment, from the lights to the solar stuff to the panels to everything else, links are down in the description. Go check it out. Thanks for watching.